I'm ready.
Have you ever been driving down the road and something over to the side catches your attention? Perhaps it's a handsome man, a pretty woman, a sprightly dog. Even though you think you're holding the steering wheel straight, your car tends to go into the direction of your gaze. I believe this illustrates a principle in life. You get what you put your attention on. I'm going to give 3 examples of this principle in my life. The first, I was 17 years old, 2 weeks away from high school graduation, and I got my first full-time job. Just to give you an idea of the kind of guy my new boss was, when he called my mother to offer me the job, she said, well, you know, she's going to need to take a few hours off after she starts working to take her high school finals. Why? She's got a full-time job now. She doesn't still need her high school diploma. Ooh. Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah. I had a habit back then of when I was replying to a question in the affirmative, I would say yeah instead of yes. This drove my new boss crazy. He would harshly say, even in front of customers, don't say yeah, say yes. Do you understand? Yeah? The more he criticized me for using the word yeah, the worse it got. I wasn't trying to be perverse, but yeah just kept popping out of my mouth more and more. But I found when I was no longer in that environment, that habit just dissipated. He got what he put his attention on. Fast forward 5 years, I was 22, and I got my next full-time job. My supervisor was very old school in her approach to management. She was well past retirement age, at least from my 22-year-old perspective. Our desks were put into rows facing her desk, schoolroom style. And she kept her eye on us every hour of the day to make sure that we were putting in our 8 hours. We started at 8, ended at 5. Our breaks were 3 to 3:15, 10 to 10:15. We would troop out on break together and troop back in together, so she knew we weren't wasting a moment of company time. When there was a big organizational shakeup, how loyal do you think those employees were to her? Were they going to put themselves on the line for her? No. She was looking for disloyalty from us every moment of the day, and she got where she placed her attention. Fast forward a few more years. I decided that I wanted something more. So I decided to go back to school. I went to college. I had teachers and I had professors who were looking for my strengths. They were looking to bring out the best in me. Not that they didn't correct me when I made errors. There was a grammatical error in a paper, a thought that needed to be better developed. Yes, they pointed that out to me, but that's not what they were focusing on. That's not what they placed their attention on. They placed their attention on bringing out my strengths and helping me identify my strengths. And I blossomed in that environment. I was able to do more and be more than I ever thought I could be. They got what they placed their attention on. I encourage all of you, whether you're educators, parents, Toastmasters, when you place your attention on looking for the good, looking for the positive, looking for the best, you will get where you place your attention. Madam Toastmaster.
Wow, we didn't even hear the ding. So we're going to do round robin. Yeah, not even the yellow light.
What's the timing on that?
4 minutes and 15 seconds.
Oh, wow, that went fast.
Very short. Yeah. So always speak to the yellow.
Yeah, it didn't go that short when I was giving that speech before, so I don't know if I was talking too fast or what, but
I'll give you some feedback on that in the manual specifically, or even
We're going to do round robin. So can you give us, do you want 1 minute to fill out your evaluation?
If I could have a minute
of silence?
so that way, yeah.
Okay. Just do 1 minute silence.
thoughts together.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
it's not much time.
a round robin, give us 2 more minutes for a round robin. Okay, and did you have something, Emily, that you wanted to say, or you're still writing?
Let me finish off this comment, but let someone else go, and then I'll.
Do you have a comment for it?
Yes. Speech was good, good content, good speed, and vocal variety. I would try not to look away when you're speaking. There were a few points where you looked down and looked away. Make sure you keep the audience with you. And my last point was, what's the takeaway? What is the point that you want to leave your audience with? If you can, when you get to the conclusion, reiterate that point during the speech so it flows smoothly. You go back to where you were from the beginning.
Anyone else? Esther?
Yes, one of the things that I liked about it was your energy. I liked your vocal variety. I liked how you used your hands. One of the things that I would recommend the next time was, at certain points, I wasn't sure exactly where you were going with it. I enjoyed the story, but I think by the end of it, I might have lost the real strong point that you made. I mean, you told us at the end what the point was, but at some point in the middle of it, I think I wasn't quite sure what the main point was. So, but beside that, I thought you did a very good job.
Esther, did you have anything to add? I have one point
Yeah.
to get
One.
better. Oh, did you?
Just one
Okay.
comment that I made, that Carol has to smile more when she's speaking, because it keeps the audience, if you don't smile, it gives a negative feeling to the audience. So you can tell a story and smile at the same time. You don't have to go, just
And you'll get it back.
a gentle smile will keep your audience liking you. If you have a sad face or an angry face or any other kind of face, the people who are listening will back away from you psychologically. It will greatly enhance the quality.
My only comment was, if you wanted more connection with your audience and to help them feel like you're speaking directly to them, you used all of you. I recommend all of you. Instead of saying all of you, say you. It really makes a difference. You know, I recommend that all of you do this versus I recommend that you do this. And you can look at one person and the rest of the room will feel that when you connect with them. Great. Okay, and next up we have Ken. So, Ken, the importance of transportation, Ken.
Smiling, I don't know, I've always had a tough time smiling, so I don't know if I'm getting that very well. I don't have any teeth, and that's one of the reasons why.
You have nice dimples.
I guess I'm making this speech today because I'm kind of frustrated in a way because the public really doesn't understand much about how transportation is accomplished, how it's funded, and that the public really gets to shaft with it. So a lot of those decisions are political. Let me first explain the importance of transportation. Transportation is really your mobility. It affects everything, everywhere you go. It affects the clothes you wear, the food you eat, everything. It's probably the second most important thing to food and water is your mobility. Now, you know, we live in a world environment, and we have democracy in the United States, and we have competition, right? Economic competition between businesses and between everything. And that's a problem when it comes to transportation, because transportation has to serve everybody. And when you have competition, sometimes you have a lower rate, but in reality, it's not good for the common purpose. You have to make decisions that benefit everybody, because transportation benefits everybody. I actually look at it similar to a sewer line. I know that's kind of big comparison, but the sewer line, if you're going to have a development, it has to have sewer. And when they build a sewer line, they basically run it as direct as possible to where it has to go. But transportation isn't like that. Transportation has circuitous routes because of people's involvement in politics. Well, we want the route to go here because that's going to benefit me. The value of land is based on transportation access. If you have land in the middle of nowhere and it has no access, it can't be used. No money can be generated. But the minute you put a road or any connection next to that land, now it can be developed, it can be used, and money can be charged to that use. So a portion of the transportation access is really a utility, but you can't use the land without that utility. And accordingly, the money that's earned from that property should pay for the installation and maintenance of that transportation access. So here we have all this development, and it goes in, some of them pay impact fees, but they're not paying for the transportation access, and they're not paying for the maintenance of that transportation system. And so that's a real problem. Now, if you take a look at the idea of competition, in these other countries, everybody has a better transportation system than we do. And that's because, you know, in those areas and in those governments, they're just going to put it in where it needs to go, and they're not going to deal with all the competing interests and all the problems and all the resistance and all the, you know, it needs to go where it needs to go. And so those systems are better. You know, every time they place a fee, like when you want to take BART, you have to pay a fee, or you're going to have a fee to go over the bridge. Every time they place a fee in front of you, that impairs economic development. Because the best thing that could happen would be you could just go everywhere you wanted to go, and then you would spend all your money, whatever it was. You wouldn't be spending it on a transportation system. In Emeryville, we have the Emery-Go-Round, which is a free shuttle. And we put that in because we didn't have a BART station. And so we made it possible to have a connection to the BART station so there's no economic impact. It may take you a little bit longer. So we're almost as good as having a BART station by having that free connection. And everybody wants to ride the free connection. You just get on it. But, you know, when you have these fares, it's an impediment to where you want to go, because it takes money away. If you want to go to movies and you got to pay so much to get there, you're going to be taking that away. So now we have one of the things that really happens in a lot of other countries is high-speed rail. So we have a high-speed rail project here in California. Now I'm a supporter of that, but the project is corrupted. I don't know if you can have any major transportation projects in this country anymore that are not corrupted. You got people that are consultants that are making money. And as much as I support high-speed rail, I don't support what they're trying to do. They're putting the routes in the wrong places. It's really a problem. And then the airline industry, they're going to fight that. And the whole idea is that, you know, as we grow, if you have a high-speed rail that goes from Los Angeles to San Francisco, that allows the airport to take the longer distance flights from other places, because under 500 miles is the radius for high-speed rail. So generally, people who are going to travel less than 500 miles will take high-speed rail. So that project is corrupted. And it's really a problem, really a problem. Okay, now here in the Bay Area, in 1989 I was mayor of Louisville, and I discovered they wanted to take out the Transbay Terminal and they wanted to replace the East End Bridge. And that kind of seems strange. Nobody wanted to take out the Transbay Terminal, but that's the Public Transportation Commission being calculated and Willie Brown did. And they actually made a deal to take out that terminal. And that's what got me involved in the politics of the transportation was that effort. So the bridge was replaced so there would never be another Transbay rail crossing that would compete with BART. And that's really sad because that Transbay rail crossing would connect the Bay Area to the whole United States. San Francisco is the only city that's really not connected to the nationwide rail network. So so they took out that connection. I mean, you can't even estimate the economic impact of taking that connection out. I mean, they built downtown San Francisco with the connection across the bridge. So anyway, I see my time is getting short, and I know I want to cross a lot of different issues, but I just wanted to explain the importance of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. And did you have a manual you wanted us to complete?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Great.
And then, did you decide which manual number you wanted to be evaluated on?
Actually, this is coming from an advanced manual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just do a general. Yeah, it's the professional speaker advanced manual, which I meant to bring.
Okay, so we don't need any time to fill out your manual then. So any feedback for Ken?
Kind of the same point. You touched a lot of different issues in there, but what were the 1, 2, or 3 things you wanted your audience to leave with? I felt you should have emphasized that during the speech, then reiterated that back at the end. Then, because of the rapid pace, wasn't too fast for me. I'm from New York, so I go with a rapid flow, but not everybody does. So, when you want to make a point, use a pause.
Great. Anyone else?
I enjoy your passion about your topic. Obviously, you're passionate about transportation. There was a plethora of information that we had. I will agree that some of the information was coming so quickly that trying to really sort out what the main point about the transportation that you really wanted to zero in. I kind of got a sense that there were some things about the way the transportation situation that you didn't agree with, like maybe how the decisions were being made. So maybe just getting a better beginning, middle, and ending about a main point about the transportation would be good. But I enjoy your energy and your enthusiasm on the topic.
So, somewhat similar to Philip's comment, I wasn't sure of the purpose of your speech. Were you informing us? Were you trying to persuade us of something? I wasn't entirely clear. And the other comment is you used the word corrupted many times, but I wasn't exactly sure in what way. Is there money changing hands? Are people being bribed? That's such a sort of inflammatory word. I would like to have seen it more accurately sort of defined as far as from your perspective. And also, I think you might want to be careful of who your audience is when you keep talking about really implying that government is corrupted without more of a definition, because some people could take offense without not knowing what you're talking about exactly.
Great feedback. Awesome. And Esther, are you ready?
I suppose I am.
Esther Chambers, your presence is your significance. Your presence is your significance. Esther Chambers.
I'm not sure you're aware that the red light is on.
I'll get my phone back.
Good afternoon. Back in 2009, it was an incredible time not only for myself, but for my entire family. We were in New York. We were sitting in a small room, very much like this one here. But it was an auditorium. And we were there to watch my daughter's documentary being shown. My daughter was receiving her master's degree. And it had taken her 5 years to get it. There were some times she thought she'd never get it. So my mother was there, and I was there, and family had flown in from all around, sitting there watching this documentary for my daughter. After the documentary was over, we had a wonderful party, and my mother had to rush away. Just before she was leaving, she said to me, as the taxi came in, "Step in and ride with me to the airport. You can take a bus back or a subway back. Spend a little time with me." And I'm thinking, oh, this is wonderful. I hadn't lived or anywhere near my mother for years, and here we were going to be able to spend some time together. I get in the cab, and I'm sitting there next to my mom just thinking, wow, we have a 45-minute cab ride. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about my daughter's future, or is she going to praise me? What a good job I had done, raising my daughter, of course. What were we going to talk about? And she sat there, and she was all quiet. Suddenly, she hands me a Polaroid. I'm looking at this Polaroid, and it's the very strangest thing. It looks like I'm looking down someone's throat, and there was like all this gooey stuff, and I'm like, Mother, what is this? She's quiet, and she's looking out the window, and I'm like, Mother, what is this? She turns and she looks at me and she says, it's a malignant tumor. I have 14 months to live. That is how I found out that my mother was dying of cancer. And I also found out that what the cab ride was all about was our discussion of how I was going to move from where I was in Chicago to where she was in El Cerrito, California, and how I would help support her through the rest of her time together, which turned out to be 18 months. During this time that I got to spend with my mother, I thought many times about my mother's life. There was a big piece of me that did not want to accept that my mother was actually dying. My mother was an incredible figure. She was actually a historic figure. And I did not want to accept. There are miracles every day. You hear about people beating cancer. I'm sure my mother will be the one. However, in December of 2010, my mother indeed passed away. During the months after, going through her things, pulling down boxes and trying to sort through all of her clothes, I came across incredible information about my mother. And I remember trying to have a conversation with my mother before she died. Mom, you had an incredible life. There are things that I remember from when I was just a child about my mom. I knew that my mother was special. Let me sit down and write about you. She'd look at me and she'd get all quiet. I didn't do anything, she'd say, and walk out of the room. I remember feeling stunned. How could this possibly be that my mother was feeling that she hadn't done anything? Here I was, sitting in front, pulling out boxes. And what I pulled out was this article here that you see, 3-state store chain. This woman right here in the back is my mom. And this is a photo of Ebony magazine, the national, international magazine of Black life in America. This woman sitting here is my mother. I had seen this article many years ago, but here I was with the actual Ebony magazine in my hand. And what astounded me was my mother saying to me, "Oh, I didn't do anything. how could this be? How could this be the feeling that my mother had about herself? So, over the last few years, I have been taking it upon myself to research about my mother. How is it that a woman who can show up in a newspaper, August the 2nd, 1964, I'm pulling up information about my mother, and this states that she most likely was the first African American woman to hold a corporate position of her level in the country. What it left me feeling was, within all of us, we have a concept of what our significance is. And what I believe that we should understand is that our presence on this planet and what we do and how we interact really is our significance. Not whether Yale University, which is where she got her law degree from, gave my mother a big statue that said, "You are significant," or what it was that my mother was looking for to help her feel that she was significant. But throughout all of the history that I'm finding, articles and pictures of my mother that shows she made an incredible impact on this world. But beyond the articles and beyond the achievements, what I firmly believe is that we all are significant. We are on this planet to make a difference. So my message is, it is your presence that deems you significant.
Do you want someone to write out some comments for you? Is someone willing to do that?
I can write out some comments on a blank sheet of paper. I need some time to kind of sit with everything.
Then maybe we'll take a minute.
Oh, are you ready to start the Robin?
Do you need quiet?
I don't need quiet.
Okay.
You can. I just need to kind of sit with everything. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we'll give 3 minutes on the clock then this time, so that we decide to. And Carol.
Here's my thought.
I think this was a very powerful, very important speech. My suggestion for you is better use of pauses.
Okay.
When you said something that really has a lot of magnitude to it, inserting some pauses really strengthens that. And I wrote down just a couple of examples. When you said, when your mother made the statement, "I have been given 14 months to live," and then you just went on into your next sentence.
Okay.
I would say she'd been given 14 months to live. Let us absorb that. And then you said that it turned out it was only 18 months. Give a momentary pause so we can absorb the impact of that.
Okay.
And again, it was so powerful when you said you were sure your mother would be the one that would be able to kick this. I mean, it's so, it only always, I guess we go goosebumps a little bit, but you let it, if you pause, you let us feel that.
Yeah, my first comment is that I think when your mother made that statement to you that she really hadn't done anything, I think she was kidding you. I don't think she was kidding.
No.
It was all the things that you said that she's done, it would be hard for her to make a statement like that. You're proving it. So, you don't think she was being very
No.
honest? Okay.
No.
Okay, I just raised that point.
Unfortunately.
But I think your speech was very passionate. I enjoyed following it, and it's probably not as structured as well as it should be, but I enjoyed it.
So you improve the structure?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
It's a great, inspiring speech for the International Speech Contest. It's very powerful.
The next one, not this one. It's not a humorous speech.
No, international speech of
International.
inspiration.
That would be a great speech. Instead of walking around with the pictures, because if you're giving this as a speech at a contest, you're not going to be able to.
Oh,
do
no,
that.
I know. I would have had to. Yeah.
But it isn't really necessary to show the picture. You could say, I found a copy of Ebony from 1964. And there in this big article, that's my mother. And say it like, oh, what was she doing there? You know, that kind of expression.
Okay.
So you use my mother a lot of times,
Okay.
where you could have used she, a little bit softer, would cut down the tone. And I understand that because my brother was in Time magazine
Uh-huh.
pushing a lawnmower when he started his company. And this was a big deal. But I'm sure your mother thought that it wasn't anything because that was the generation. You know, we didn't do that much. Women didn't take credit for stuff. I'm of her generation, you know.
That's
I don't know
interesting.
how old your mother was when she passed.
Yeah, she was in her 80s.
Okay,
She's
so she
older.
was older. I'm not, I'm in my 80s now, so, you know, I don't know when she passed away. Was it recent?
2010.
Oh, okay, so, yeah. Same generation. But women then did not think they did anything, you know. This was just routine. Yeah, well, sure, I should be doing that. I had the education. This is normal. Yeah, what's the big deal? We never took credit.
How are we on time?
Yeah, yeah.
We're out of
Oh,
time.
okay.
You'll
I'll write it down.
You'll
That's
write it.
fine. I just
Powerful speech.
That's okay. We can still do it.
Well, if you don't have time to write it down, I just love to hear a few because you give good
um
suggestions.
so there's two pieces to it. One of them is more of an encouragement for you. There's so much emotion underlying this speech, and I think some of it is very, very personal to you. And my concern is that because it's so personal to you, that there might be an underlying charge in there that is coming out in your speech that you might not be fully intending, because I almost felt like there was a dual meaning behind why you gave this speech, and I'm not sure if that perception is accurate or not, but it just seemed like that to me. So on one level, you were talking about, you know, this is an incredibly own your own space kind of thing. On another level, it seemed like there was something that, I don't know how to explain it, but it was almost like a disappointment in you, that there was this whole aspect of you, about your mom you didn't know about. And I think that it was kind of taking away from the message a little bit.
Okay.
So I'd be aware of that and see if there's anything underlying there that you haven't worked through,
Okay.
or that it doesn't just take away from the message. That's the big thing. So just work through whatever it is that is you, and then whatever is the message, and then really bring those two pieces into harmony. The second thing is actually your two speeches. You each can learn something from each other. Your speech was very, very simple, but there was so much emotion that I wasn't getting out of it, even though there were emotional components. Your speech was emotionally riveting. I could not stop listening to what you were saying. I loved it. I was burning for more. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear more about your experiences. There was so much meaning to everything. Your speech could have used a little bit more structure, a little bit more simplicity, which is what you had down. So learn from each other, and I think that you can do an amazing speech, both of you.
This speech will eventually be a professional speech, so it'll be a lot longer. So I think it will
Be a great international.
yeah.
It would be awesome.
It would be awesome as
Really
an
awesome.
international, and you can spice in a little bit of humor into it
Yeah.
in the appropriate areas. So, for instance, you could exaggerate the article. Whatever that date of that article was, you could just like splash it out, da da da, and then have that pause, and then say, Ebony Magazine, that blah blah, blah, just really extend like, oh my God, where that is, and you're like, oh, this is just my mom. And just because it's so exaggerated, not exaggerated in a silly fashion, but so exaggerated, like, this is my humble mom here, and she was a giant. Wow. And it would, honestly, something like that, it's a little bit on the dry side, but it would like, wow, that's an amazing woman.
And the timing of it.
And the timing of it, if you can get the timing of it right, because that's what dry humor really requires. So it depends on what works for you and what works for your type of vocal variety, what you want to develop in it. But there's ways of doing that, and it would simplify it. Simplify the structure, simplify how you're stating something, again, which is what Carol was doing really well with. And you would get your point across 10 times faster, which means that speech would get shortened in other areas, and then you would have more time to elaborate on your theme and your purpose a little bit better. And then from there, you can easily grow it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Did you have anything, Philip?
Yeah, I thought it was heartfelt on the structure. I noticed your introduction was kind of mild, and it was like a movie where you would build up in the speech, and your voice would get stronger, and the vocal variety would enlarge a bit. I would say grab us by the throat in the front with the introduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a day in such and such in 1982 changed my life. And then let me share with you. So shake us up right away in the beginning. And when you're pacing on the stage, this is not me, but Toastmaster purists have said, stand at one point, make a point. Walk to the other end of the stage, make a point. So that in each part you're making a point, because if you're walking and talking, supposedly your audience can lose. Like I said, not me, Toastmaster.
No, that's the point. That's a point I make to
Stand and
other
deliver.
people. So that's
Yeah, that's it.
So I
Stand.
need to be aware of that.
Stand
Okay.
and deliver. And I got a different reference, because to me I thought that I got the picture that your mom was modest in her accomplishments, because she believed what she did was what she was supposed to do based on her capability. So somewhere in that, you could find a place to see that you recognize your mind, realigning yourself with emerging to that point where you find that your mom was so wonderful and so great, and she was modest about that, because what she did may have not been something that was etched in everybody in America's brain, but for people who did know of her accomplishments and what she did, it was huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think you're very, thank you, excellent comments. I think you are very, there's a word, and I'm grasping for it and it'll come later, but there is an issue that's underlining this, and I think it's interesting that you picked up on that, because I actually had an argument with my mother. That's how I know how serious she was about it. And what it ended up happening was my mother, when she graduated from Yale, and she was only 35 years old. My mom was just amazing. And she was headed for greatness, and then the divorce is really what changed my mom's life, and she actually had to leave law. So there was a regret for my mom about things that she did not accomplish. So when she passed away so soon, and I wanted her to sit down with me and allow me to talk about the wonderful things that I thought she did accomplish. She didn't want to think about it because it made her think about those things that she had not done. And also because she was the third African American woman to graduate from Yale Law School.
Wow.
Great job.
Yeah, and and I just found a picture that showed that there had only been 2 black lawyers in Portsmouth, Virginia between like 1920 and 1950, and my mother was one of them. So, I'm trying to say, Mom, look at all these things, and she's kind of like talk to the hand kind of a thing. I'm going to my grave remembering what it is that I didn't accomplish. So that left me feeling wishful that understanding my mom and understanding that it's universal if there's something really big in your life that you don't get to do. But a lot of these things that I'm showing you, I'm seeing them for the first time.
This is a whole nother speech.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm seeing them for the first time. I mean, I knew my mother was incredible, but I'm digging up stuff that I've never even seen before and really wishing. So that's why I just wish that people could know that no matter what you accomplish, we're all significant because of our role on the planet and the things that you do and the people that you meet and what you accomplish in your life. That makes us significant. But I say all that to say that that's what you were feeling underneath all of this speech was this huge thing going on
Into
between
that.
me and
Tap in the next round. Tap into it.
You know.
A little longer speech, you could bring that in.
Yeah. But that's
Or
why
make that
it's
the point.
it's a
I
very
think that's a winner, world champion.
Yeah.
which point?
That premise.
Of
I see it like regret versus celebration. You know, are you going to live your life with regret or celebration? There's things we all wish we could have done too, but to celebrate what we have, I think you've got a winning speech here.
So here's the one thing about stories is that depending on how we tell them, we can take a different message from them.
Right, yes.
So what Cynthia's talking about is absolutely true. I can see what your original premise is as well. So there are so many different angles to this story, and that's the reason why I really encourage you to dig really deep into this and explore all these avenues and what they mean to you, what they meant to your mom, and let go of what you need to let go of so that way you can really focus at the heart of the message here, because there is so much that you can say with this one piece. And I would really love to hear you do something around this topic more, because this is powerful and moving and has so many meanings to anyone else. And that's not counting the history in it. So please don't give up on this one. Like, really dig deep into this and explore it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to combine the two exercises because we'll only have a chance to do one more round instead of a third round, but I think this was really juicy, I think, for all of us to hear and kind of go deeper. So this exercise, we've done it before, well, the second one we've done before. So for right now, if you want to just, for the exercise, it's going to be 5 minutes on the clock. So just feel your feet, right where you're sitting on the ground. If you can have them flat on the ground, and just feel your feet.
Are you starting now?
Starting now, yeah. And if you're comfortable, you can put your hand on your heart, in your heart center, just to kind of bring yourself to your chest, your heart, and then breathe in and out. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable, breathing in. One more time, breathing in and out. And then just bring your attention to your heart. In our culture, in many cultures, the heart is not just pumping blood, but really helping us to make decisions from the heart, from that space of our higher self. And ask yourself, what is the message I want to share today? Whether you're a speaker officially or you're an evaluator, just what do you want to share? What do you want to share from your heart today? What does your heart want to say? And just let's pause here and ask, what does my heart want to say? Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and breathe in, and out. And slowly open your eyes and just come back to the room. Look for any green color, any other color that will bring you back to the here and the now. We kind of took a little dive into our heartland. Yeah, yawning's good. Need to really relax and get into it. Would anyone like to briefly share a message they got about what they want to share today, whether you're a speaker or an evaluator or timer? You want to share?
Mine was keep living. And I put my hand over my heart. It reminds me of something that my grandmother used to tell me as part of wisdom. Whenever there was something I couldn't comprehend or understand, that was the answer. Keep living. In other words, keep living, you'll find out. You don't see it now, you don't understand now, but you just keep living.
Almost her speaking to you through your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to share what they got?
I was thinking during your speech how lucky I was. Because I had that same picture. I had an esophageal tumor.
You had what?
An esophageal tumor.
Really?
Yes, last year.
Oh my goodness. How did you get over it? What?
Chemo, radiation,
Oh.
some other stuff that
You survived.
nobody's asked me about that I was taking, and they didn't treat it to make it go away, but it did.
Oh.
And I took some other stuff, and apparently it helped. A lot of prayer, and very heavy chemo and heavy radiation. And
you
I guess it
survived.
wasn't my time, so.
Oh, I'm so happy.
And I didn't get killed by the deers. So it's not my time this year.
You're so precious in this studio. Glad we're here.
You said 4 minutes?
Five
Five.
minutes. Anyone else want one more thing to share?
Well, I guess I was thinking, sometimes it's hard to get out of your head and actually stay inside the heart. But I did a version of this recently. I was in Ohio, and I forced myself to get up in front of a huge crowd in a room like this, college kids and alumni. And we all had an opportunity to say something. And I did a version of this. But what I included was, I saw a drum. And so I had some people use some instruments. And so I had people, brought in, so that instead of just saying about your presence is your significance, I actually had the kids saying, something like your presence is your significance, and we all strummed. So that was one thing that I did that was kind of like what you were talking about, which is kind of grab them a little bit more. And because it was young people and I felt like I needed to do something, they were college kids. So I just wanted to share that.
You can actually do that drum yourself during the speech.
Say that again?
You can actually do that during the speech.
Oh.
You're allowed to use props.
Oh.
You
There
could
was-
even just come over to the side of the table and do that,
Or you can have a clock or one of those tall drums and do it yourself and say the word. Your presence is your significance. Your presence is
And
your-
it was really cool. It had this vibe going around the room,
You
and
have
everybody
practice.
was, So that was one thing. And I guess I was remembering that.
for an international speech, you could actually do that. And it could be part of your speech, but, you know, you have to compress the time and take out some of the extremes.
Yeah.
Just concentrate on one point.
For the longer one that I wanted to do, one of the reasons I was just kind of showing you guys the pictures with this is that I envision actually having, you know, pull down a slide and put, because people really, this is not the first time I've talked about my mother, I've talked about people love the pictures,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they because I, especially the old stuff, and I'm writing a book about it, so that's the other thing too. These pictures and things I'm finding is gonna be in the book.
As you're coming up the second round, you can feel your feet and breathe when you come up to the podium, the staging area, if you'd like, and just center yourself. This is a really good thing, especially when you're at a contest, because your timing doesn't start until you do a major gesture or you speak a word. So try that. Carol. Carol, please help me welcome Carol Haynes. What's your attention on? What's your attention on? Carol Haynes.
This is why doing it this quickly, you know, not having time to
Something shifts
absorb.
though.
Let's give it a try. Can I not be filmed? I don't want to be filmed.
It was 2009, and it was my family's time to shine. We were sitting in a room very much like this, and the credits were rolling up. We were watching the end of the documentary of my daughter receiving her master's degree in integrated media arts. As we walked down and toward where the taxis were, my mother called to me and said, "Ride with me." I was so excited. I assumed what we were going to talk about was how my daughter was going to launch her career in the movie industry. Or she was going to pat me on the back about what a good job I had done raising my kid. Sliding next to her, sat down for the 45-minute ride. But she didn't say anything. I'm waiting. She's looking at this picture, which she hands to me. I look at it, it's rather strange. It's like I'm looking down somebody's throat. Mother, what is this? It's quiet. And I say to her, Mother, what is this? She says, it's a malignant tumor. I have 14 months to live. My mother spent the next 45 minutes explaining to me how I would move from Chicago to El Cerrito, California, to help her live out the next 18 months. When my mother passed away, I found myself remembering the discussions that I had with her during those final months. I remember stories in my childhood about my mother being a very significant person. I had gone to her and I said, Mom, let me write your memoir. Let me tell the story of all the great things that you did throughout your life. And to my surprise, her response was, I didn't do anything. I was shocked because it seemed that I really remembered that my mother had done some incredible things. But instead of embracing the idea of, yes, let's sit down and write this story, it was more like, talk to the hand. It's not happening. After my mother passed away, I did a very difficult thing that some of you who have lost loved ones may have had to experience, and that is packing up your loved one's things. And I pulled down boxes from her closet, and going through the boxes, I suddenly reached in and pulled out a tattered copy of Ebony magazine, 1969. And I'm looking down, and there in big bold type is an article all about my mother being vice president of a chain of department stores with 5,000 employees, and incredible pictures of my mother's life as the first African woman executive in the retail industry. I remember the conversation I had had with my mother, and I had remembered her response. Talk to the hand. I didn't do anything. Yet here I was with the Ebony magazine, and not just with the Ebony magazine. Newspaper articles, a calendar, you know, like the ones that you see from mortuaries, African American history, famous individuals. Well, it wasn't just dead people, it was my mom. Because when they had it, was my mom, she was alive. And I was thinking to myself, how could this be possible? A woman in Ebony magazine, Jet magazine, covers of newspaper articles. Yet when I said to her, Mother, let me write the story of your life, her response to me was, I didn't do anything. Suddenly, I recalled one experience I had had with my mom where I finally cornered her. And I said, Mother, do you remember one of your favorite books that you had read, and had been The Color of Water by James McBride? And it was a story all about a young man who had attended my college, all about his mom. It was my mother's favorite book. And I said, Mom, what about James McBride? What about The Color of Water? He got to write about his mom. Why couldn't I write about you? She stood there. She clenched her fists and she said, but I had such dreams. And she left the room. I suddenly realized, what happens to us when our life ends before our dreams are fulfilled? Do we leave the earth feeling we didn't do anything? Is there a way that we can look at our lives and see that our presence is our significance on this planet rather than just our achievements?
Wow. Very impactful. So let's take 3 minutes and give some feedback. I'll just give, oh, go ahead.
I think it was better than the first one. I certainly agree with the conclusion. Doing video, I know I didn't put this link and I think it was better. You expanded on, now was it Ebony, now was Jet, and some other things. And I just like it better.
I like the details, and that I was going to comment on that earlier. I wanted to know a little more. I'd love to know her name.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the name of your daughter's documentary that she did. That would be awesome. Because those specific details, they kind of are the nuances. It's kind of like if you serve a dish and you can't tell which are carrots and peas, you know?
Okay.
So you really know this is the carrot and this is the pea. Plus, they might want to do some research on your daughter's documentary. Hey, give her a little shout out, and your mom too, on her history. And it really ties it back. But I think you tapped into much more detail this time when you were really tapping into why you're giving this speech.
I like your ending better.
Yes.
The way you brought in her unaccomplished things that made her feel that.
Tying a little bit into what Ernestine was saying, your ending was so much better. I want you to dive a little more into that aspect because it felt like it was almost cut short. I loved all the details that you were putting in. It was a lot more alive in my mind on so many different levels. And yet at the same time, I'm like, I want to hear about why understanding or just being present with someone and having that knowledge of their experiences and where things are going and how things have evolved, why those are really important to being together. I know why they mean something to me, but what have your experiences told you and what can they maybe lend to us to really appreciate and be with others? I'm assuming that's where you're going with this. I'm not too sure. So again, just dive deeper. Like you're doing a fantastic job. This is.
I think the beginning was hard. I didn't feel as connected with you guys in the beginning. I felt more connected with you in the end. So I'm not quite sure how to. I don't want this story is so powerful that if I hit it to people too soon, it'll be like, oh, it's too much, you know.
I think that this subject is so powerful and moving on so many different levels that you couldn't. In fact, that's some of the feedback I'm writing down. I actually wouldn't mind you starting out with the taxi ride. Skip some of the details or bring those details into your speech later on, but just start out with the taxi ride and say, we just celebrated my daughter's graduation. We watched the documentary, named the documentary, I agree with that, but talk about that photo. It's like, my mom was staring at this photo. Really get into, so I have this all written down. So anyways, but yeah, just dive into it, go directly into the topic, don't worry about that, and people are gonna give you that feedback if it's too much. So, and then you can dial it back, but you won't know how much is too much until you do too much.
And it wasn't too much.
It wasn't, no.
And Philip?
Actually, this sounded like a different story.
Yeah.
A different story from your first speech. I thought that I would have actually entitled this speech, but I had such dreams. Because that was the real focus of what you did this time around. Your gestures seemed a lot more engaging, and I like, you have a particular style and cadence, I noticed it. So you start out, even in your voice, it's much lighter. And so your subject, you don't delve in deep, but as you get more and more in the speech, your vocal variety changes, your gestures are light. So I think for you, it's a matter of style. So you may want to focus on a way, like I said, what is it that you have in style that grabs them right away? And then, because we're going to follow you irregardless because of your facial expressions, of your gestures, your audience will be right there. I noticed on the eye contact, hold the gaze. When you do a sentence, and so it's easy to want to scan the room, and what you do is when you do that, you just face you put your face here, and then you but give us the whole sentence, and then move on to the next sentence. And then look in the other person's eyes and move on to the next sentence. Don't give me a bit of it here and then move, because then it, stay with me. And then I was wondering, did you actually call your mother? Did you actually use that word when you were with your mom?
She wanted me to call her mother. Am I saying mother a lot?
No. When you said in the story, the reason for me, because I know when my mom passed, I called my mother mom and mommy, and so did my sisters. And when she passed, we didn't use that term. In fact, outside of the family, we would say, well, this is what Dora did. We would call my mother by her first name, which is, or I would say something and I'm the son of Dorit. So this is what we learned in the family. It was a very different aspect from when she was alive. So I wondered,
like when
did
she
you
was
actually say
alive,
mother?
I used to piss her off because I called her mommy, and she
Right,
didn't like
exactly.
that. She felt that that I was too grown to be calling her mommy. So I think now that she's gone, I probably have adopted and called her what she wanted me to call her, which I did not do when she was alive. She wanted to be called mother, or she had a friend that had the kids that called them by the first name. I never adjusted to that. I did not want to call my mother Yolanda or Yodi, but so that's an interesting comment.
I liked that you shortened how you got into the cab. Well, you could take a bus back while you removed that, which made it much stronger because that was an irrelevant detail.
Okay.
And I liked it, and it allowed you to juxtaposition how happy and celebratory things were, and then seeing the picture. And having those be side by side, it made it, by getting rid of the extraneous in between details. And I love the use of the humor, the pat on the back. And so if you could find, if maybe, I think Ernestine mentioned this on the first round, maybe a couple of other places where it's appropriate to do something like that. But yeah, the pats on the back, that was really cute. So leave that in.
Okay.
That's beautiful. Great. So do we want to go back and maybe do 2 minutes on the counter? If anything to say for Carol?
There is 7 minutes after 5.
What time do you have to go out here?
If we finish at 5:15, it's fine.
Okay.
So anything else that you wanted to give to Carol?
Emily didn't really get a chance to do the evaluation quite so much. You have time to if there's time for her to do that, I wanted to really hear more the full evaluation that you had, if there's time.
Okay. And Philip, did you, since you spoke
Philip
first,
has
you want to
anything?
just...
Actually, kind of almost the same thing. When you look in the eyes of the audience, make sure that they're following you. Are their pupils dilated? Are their heads nodding? So that's the way that you actually get the feedback. Because there were a couple of points where I thought you looked at us, but you looked over us instead of looking directly into my eyes. You looked at me, but you kind of like looked over me. It's like when people used to tell kids in public speaking to look at the back of the room. Don't focus on the people right in front of you, because they knew kids would be scared, so they would tell them just focus at the back of the room. So that's kind of what it felt like. It was like
Probably
focus at the
because
back
she
of
was
the room.
looking at me.
Right, give it to me
And
right
I was in
there.
the back of the room. You looked at me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in the back of the room. Usually the best place to focus is somewhere around the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if it's a large audience, maybe 10, 15 rows out. It kind of gives everybody the feeling that they're being looked at, even
That's
if
right.
they're not.
And picking out individuals, their eyes.
And just go
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
sideways to the room. Basically, if you kind of go not dead centered, but a little fronted dead center is the best visual spot in a room. At least that's what they taught me in public speaking.
So this is actually something that I wanted to talk about initially. When you start out your story, you're using that steering wheel, and the story itself is good. There's an issue with the way that you're doing the movements. You're coming up really high along to your face. And when you're driving, first off, you're never driving like that. So it's a little bit of a, you have to be like this little old lady, like. But the thing is it obstructs your face and I want to see you. And so I felt like there was this distance that was getting put between us, and I really didn't like that. Now, if you do obstruct your face, like the World Championship of Public Speaker, he would talk about the tear coming down. But it didn't hide his face, it only accentuated the emotion. So that's the difference between the two of them. So do something like, let us know that you're driving, maybe even when you are up there, instead of standing and going like this, like bend down in a squat so it looks like, oh, you're sitting down in the car and you're driving. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, and this is the big piece that I was trying to put my brain around, you're bringing up two separate topics here. One is when you focus on the negative, then that's exactly what you're going to get. And when you focus on the positive, so many other possibilities open up. And here's the thing. You have two stories that focuses on the first part of the topic, and only one story that mostly touches on the second topic. There's more emphasis on the first and on the negative than on the positive. So it feels like your story is split into two, and then at the same time, there's so much emphasis on the negative, which is exactly what you don't want. The whole theme is to focus on the positive, focus on the potential possibilities, focus on the person's strengths. And that piece isn't highlighted as much as what it needs to be. And I don't know, I like the stories. The stories represent the idea. I'm looking for something that's a little bit more streamlined. Maybe pick one major story that really represents that and that can show the transition from one point to the next. Maybe focus on someone, for instance, who did that on both ends. You first met him or her and they were really negative and critical and things like that, and then they woke up and realized, hey, this doesn't really work, and then they started shifting their behavior. And this is the result of, oh, this opened up for this and this, and here's the result over here. This door opened and this possibility opened, and I never would have dreamed I could have done this. And then go into, now imagine what would happen if you just did that for your neighbor, your daughter, your son, whomever it is. Imagine that possibility. And that's the big thing I would take from it.
Great.
I think that is a great suggestion.
I don't think it's necessary at the beginning, if you use the car, to actually do the steering motion, because everybody knows.
I like it though, because it brings us to that, because we really feel that we're there, and she's looking. I don't know. I think it's great, but it's up to you.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what was just said, because maybe what you could do is just shorten the first story. Maybe it's just a little too long. And just shorten it. And giving you more room at the end, because I loved your ending. I loved how she ended your story. So if you could do a little bit more of that, because I was actually with you, and in my head, I was actually thinking to myself, oh, how can I do that tonight?
Yeah.
How can I go home and pay attention to my public speaking career? What am I going to focus on that's positive? See, I was doing it for myself, where you could be helping us do that at the end. So just shorten up that story in the beginning and leave yourself room to do more of what she was saying. And I think it's powerful. Very good suggestion.
And our last 2 minutes, anything else for Ken? Because I know we've got a little shortened on Carol's and Ken's during the process here. Any feedback on Ken that you wanted to add?
Oh, didn't we give them feedback?
We did, but it was shortened. We
Oh.
got a really long feedback session.
Oh, I got it.
And so I wanted to give a little more for Carol and for Ken. I just think you should be getting this more often, and especially, I had a question for you. When you said that the economic way of choosing the new lane, does that mean that carpoolers won't get to go in that lane?
Everybody goes away on pay, is my understanding.
Right now, it's free.
Yeah,
So you mean there will no longer be a carpool lane? There won't be a benefit to being in a carpool?
Yeah, there will still be a carpool.
But you have to pay? It's gonna be a toll for the carpool?
I have to
No.
research that answer.
Well, in Los Angeles right now, you can use the carpool lane as a single driver, but you pay on your fast track.
But carpools are free.
Right, carpools are still free, but if I'm a single driver and I want to use that lane and I have the fast track, it charges me for it.
How does it
But see, you would
know?
have to put in a new transponder because you have to indicate how many passengers you have in your car. That's a new transponder
Wow.
that's come out.
That seems like a lot to do while you're driving.
And on 237 in Milpitas right now, they have the same thing.
Right.
It's an express lane.
Right.
That again, fast track. So the only way you can be in there is you gotta have the fast track
Right.
because you're paying for the lane.
But if you're in a carpool, if you have 2 or 3 people, do you get to go on it?
You still get to go on, but if you're single driver with no people,
How did they know?
How does it know?
You have to indicate how many passengers you got.
yeah.
And then they'll catch you if you make a mistake.
Yeah, you pay a fine.
Yeah,
Expensive.
Yeah.
because mine
Sure.
occurred fast track.
It charges you on the fast track, because in LA, when I was looking, I was like, how are they doing it? My friend was saying, oh, they got the fast track. I'm like, oh, so you pay now to be in the lane?
Still has it in how it is on your card.
Yeah.
Transponders don't have a way to input anything.
Yeah, there's no input.
Well, if you don't have
Is
the
there a new
transponder, you
fast-
can't use the lane. You have to upgrade that
No,
transponder.
but I'm saying, what if
Oh.
you have the transponder, but you also have, say, 3 people in your car?
Well, you're gonna have to indicate on the transponder how many people you
So
have.
that's a new type of transponder. 'Cause
Yeah.
And that
every
seems
transponder
distracting to
don't
the
have a way.
driver. You have to indicate.
Well, it's not that hard. You just push a button, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know?
Whatever.
Okay, interesting, but I think obviously this is of a lot of interest, so I would highly
Yes.
encourage you to make a 7-minute speech out of it that's really like introducing,
Yeah, okay.
stir it up, and start to
Just, yeah, I think also the things that we said was we love the stories and the details.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'll
It's
do that.
great.
Okay,
We're just.
just ending. Well, thank you all, it was a great feedback session.